Hello everybody. In the first ever in the history stream, I don't know if we have any name for it actually.
Inaugural? No. Maybe. We do this yearly.
Yeah, we have no name for our regular sessions. This is like the first episode ever. Welcome in Learn Together.
Yeah, we're getting prepped for a certification.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe as a kind of an introduction, we ought to do. My name is Mikołaj Sienkiewicz, and I'm together with.
I'm Jason Hand.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
Yep. And maybe we can explain kind of how did we get here. So
yeah.
For me, I am here because of the Microsoft Student Ambassadors program. Jason is partially here because of the cloud advocacy. I think we can shortly describe what does it mean, but overall also we are both here kind of because we were connected in this mentor/mentee program. I think it's kind of easy to say who is who, so we can skip that. But yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, do you want to describe briefly what do you do as a cloud advocate maybe? Yeah, I think you will do it the best.
Sure. Yeah, well, if you were confused, I'm the mentor, he's the mentee. But although I've learned a ton from you, Mikołaj, so it's been awesome.
Of course, no problem.
But yeah, we got connected earlier in 2020. I don't remember exactly when it was.
Best year ever. Yeah.
Yeah, and we've worked on a few things together. Mikołaj has been on my All Around Azure show, and one of the things that we decided to work on together, because we were already planning to do it anyway, is prepare for certification. So I did the AZ 900 certification last year, and I got a little bit of a professional commitment to myself to get one certification per year. If not more. But,
so starting fast. Right in January.
Yeah, so exactly, you got to get started. Well, remember yesterday we started doing the math on this, and you know, unless you're doing this multiple times a week for several hours, it can take a while to get through some learning paths.
Especially if like us, we want to get into details and stuff, right? It's kind of like that.
Yeah, exactly. So so we're gonna go ahead and start preparing for the AZ 204.
I just see that actually your NDI source changed, so this is going to be kind of a part of our show, I guess. Like if there are going to be, yeah, like I don't know if you can see on the stream, you kind of resized. Oh,
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
This is what we have that bandwidth. It's that bandwidth thing. It's the scaling the inner bounds part of OBS that it just never behaves the way I think it should.
Yeah. What we could do is, like, I don't know if it works, but I could temporarily place you like this from the from the Skype or something. And maybe it's better. I don't know. It shows the buttons. I know. It's like a pity. Yeah, there was this bound. Do you want to like?
You can also, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna say you could just take that that background. Yeah, just drop that on top. I was gonna say you could take the background, the blue drop shadow part of the MO, and just.
You want to just cut it out, right?
Just hide it. Yeah, just hide it.
Give me a sec. Yeah, if you are by any chance watching or going to watch, and you are going to experience any of such behaviors, then let us know, definitely. Since this is a pilot phase, okay, just give me a sec. I'm going to find it. Camera, shadow, boom. Okay, yeah, I'm hiding second Jason away. But now you are so small again. I can probably drag you a bit like that. We will see if it resizes again in the future. If it will, we will probably resize you back up. But yeah, sorry for that. I kind of distracted you, I guess.
Welcome to streaming with OBS. That's how that goes.
Yeah, kind of in a shortcut.
And
yeah. So, kind of in a nutshell, maybe I will just say that me being the mentee, I met Jason because of this kind of cooperation between cloud advocates and student ambassadors. I can see that you are big again. We will see if it's going to behave like that all the time. If yes, then I'm going to change it to the Skype version. Yeah, just not to be bothered. But
Yeah.
Being student ambassador means basically that even though I'm studying, I kind of have an opportunity to work with Microsoft professionals, with the technologies. You get some benefits, some Azure credits, which probably we are going to use during our sessions. And yeah, basically what I do is create community on my on-campus university around Microsoft technologies. We organize some events, basically make sure that people get together and work together in order to achieve bigger goals and stuff like that. Or this is at least what we have done before COVID. Right now it's more of an online activity. I think it's the same thing for you, like, right, Jason? It's probably kind of similar. Because you are doing, I think, somewhat similar thing when it comes to content creating, right? But just on a professional scale, so to say.
Yeah, very similar. I mean, as a cloud advocate, we wear a lot of hats, but at the end of the day, we're trying to help people learn new technology and enable them to do and be whatever they'd like to be in terms of technology. What we can do to help with that is kind of our effort. So, and there's a ton of good learning tools out there that are absolutely free, and the Microsoft Learn platform is the one that we know the most, and actually can help drive and build some of that content, some of those Learn modules in there. And it turns out there's some really good ones to help us prepare for these certs. So that's something we've focused on on the projects I've been involved in, and so this feels like a very natural thing for you and I to work on because.
Yep. It's a very smooth intro to what we are going to do. Like, wow, I'm like amazed. Yeah. So we basically were like talking on a weekly basis, I think, for quite a while, and we just thought, as you mentioned, that we just want to get certified. Like for both of us, it's kind of good thing to kind of get certified for this professional growth. And because of that, we thought, hey, let's do this together. But we thought like this is what normies would do, would just prepare. We are professional content creators. We are going to stream it. And this is why we are here. We are going to stream it. And I think that the case is that, well, at least for me, I've always been kind of dependent on other people. Like whenever I learn alone, I get so distracted by so many things. I don't know. I have to like fight it almost. Internet, anything distracts me. So I think that for me, it's definitely a benefit that I kind of, if I work with somebody, I just get focused much more. And maybe that's what we can do with other people. That's what we thought, that maybe somebody will kind of feel that if they can join us and just follow along with us, maybe they will get motivated to actually also get certified and maybe share some experiences, some knowledge, some tips and whatnot, right?
Yeah, totally. And, even though we have some familiarity with Microsoft and Azure and some of the things that we'll be going over, it's not a requirement. Everything that we're going to do and all of the training and the learning modules are designed for beginners, and it should be, it shouldn't be too scary for really anybody to kind of follow along with us. And regardless to even if you want to do the certification yourself, a lot of the things that we're going to be going over are just cloud concepts in general. I know we're going to be talking, I think today even, about serverless, and just making sure people even understand what that term means. And then, so there's I think for a lot of people, there's always a little bit of a concern that some of these things are over their head, they're too technical, they're whatever. But we want to make sure it's very clear that that's not the case.
I think that we definitely don't want to rush through this material that we want to kind of go through. It's more like, I think we are going to dive deeper into the topic, and because of that maybe also learn more, I believe. So yeah, the idea maybe for this series or this stream is that we actually thought that since there are so many great learning paths already prepared and materials to learn, that we are kind of going to base the stream upon that. For example, if you just go into the website like Microsoft Learn, maybe we can paste it in chat or something, right? For the future or something.
Yeah, I'm doing that right now. So I just put something into chat for
hey, that's nice.
For our link, but we've also got the link displayed there in the lower left.
Yeah.
which takes you to exactly what I think of the thing maybe that you were looking at previously. It's not this screen here, but it's the information about the exam itself, and then at the bottom of that, yeah, there you go. At the bottom of that is down there where it says two ways to prepare. That's what we're going to be. That's where we're going to start. We're going to go through these learning paths.
So basically, we have chosen this certification that this is the one that we want to take. It's AZ204, or actually AZ204 is the name of the exam. The certification is Azure Developer Associate. Here are some skills measured that you basically are being taught. I think that AZ204, or basically the Developer Associate, is a very nice certification when it comes to this overall knowledge. Like it's nothing that I think that everybody can use. Things that we are going to cover here, because they are not super advanced, and I think they outline a lot of basic services that you basically, if you know, even if you are an administrator or somebody like that. Like I professionally am a DevOps engineer, so I work a lot in administration, and I still thought that actually doing this path of a developer is going to be very useful for me, because there are a lot of services that you can still implement in your administrator, so to say, life. And as part of the certificate, just as Jason said, you need to pass this exam basically in order to get certified. And the shortened link is at the bottom, right? Like at the bottom of the screen probably right now. And so you can read more about it. Like you can read what is actually, like what's the topic that you are being tested on and stuff like this. Skills measured again, and at the bottom there are the materials that we talked about. That So we are probably going to start with create serverless applications. I have even clicked on it like yesterday. I wanted to have a sneak peek on what awaits us, and I think that we are going to just crack those learning paths one by one.
Let's take a look at. Hey, did we get any music going? I forgot to ask about.
Hear anything? Oh, I think there is.
Well,
there should be.
There may be. I'd have to.
Oh, you can do a quick check maybe, yeah. Or I can do it myself probably on the second monitor. I definitely hear it like in my headphones, so if it's not playing in the stream.
Yeah, I think I hear it.
Yeah. Maybe it's a bit too quiet. Maybe I should like up it a little bit.
Maybe just a small bump, but I wouldn't make it too much louder.
I give it a small bump. If it's going to be annoying when we read or anything, we are just going to turn it down anyway. Alright. So yeah, basically the first learning path, as Jason said, is creating serverless applications. So we are probably going to talk about how to leverage services without actually providing infrastructure. So I would imagine doing it just much faster and more flexible whenever the opportunity allows you to. Yeah. Just checking real quick if everything seems okay in the stream manager. Yeah, I think it seems okay to me with the music and everything.
Great.
So yeah, I have my cup of tea. So I guess we can just dive deeper into this learning path. So all of the learning paths that you have seen here, they are built of modules. And each module is built of several like sections. So when we were discussing it with Jason, we thought that maybe we will cover like one module per stream, kind of to keep it somewhat structured. Probably if there are going to be shorter modules, maybe we will combine them somehow, but I think today we are going to cover this one. Don't get deceived by those 17 minutes. It's just because I clicked through some of the pages. I actually didn't read them yet, but I just clicked through them to see if there are some videos and stuff like that, if I should prepare anything for the stream.
Well, and I will say, sometimes those timings, time suggestions or estimates are pretty good, but it's just really based on how much text is in there. If you look at that, if you look at the overview or the sort of the table of contents there where it says introduction and then identify technology, a lot of what some of the learning path modules is just reading. But then eventually we'll run across one where there is a hands-on thing that you have to do, an exercise. And then there's also knowledge checks. So if you look at the very second to last part of today's overview, we've got the knowledge check, and it's kind of like a little quiz where you have a few questions that you got to answer just to make sure that you retained and understood what you read in the previous sections. So what I imagine we'll be doing on here is, I don't think we're going to read word for word the entire thing. We'll look at it, we'll kind of talk about it. So the timing for us that is estimated isn't probably going to be that helpful. But for those who might be just doing it at home, reading on their own, I've found that the time's usually pretty good in terms of estimates.
Mm-hmm. I also think that we are going to take a lot of discourses whenever, I don't know, any new service is going to just be presented to us. I think we can show it maybe in the portal or play it with it a little bit, or just make sure that we are taking it in a kind of slow pace, but covering all of it and not just rushing through it, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get through this.
Maybe I will just start with the introduction then.
Yeah, let's go a little larger. Can you zoom in in your browser maybe once?
Oh, I definitely can. Is this better?
Let's do there you go. That looks better. Oh, right there. Maybe one less.
Oh, I think there is a small delay on the stream, and this is why
I usually go with 125%.
Let me see. Okay, 25, got it.
That looks good.
Yeah, unless the camera is not going to get much bigger again, I think we should be good to go.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so choosing the best Azure service to automate your business processes. Let me just read this one real quick. All right. So they already kind of write which services we are going to get our hands on. So there's going to be Azure Functions, Power Automate, Logic Apps, and Web Jobs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something that I don't know that we really talked about it specifically, but there's going to be a lot of terms. There's going to be acronyms. There's going to be things that maybe not everybody's familiar with. So even things like Azure Functions might not be a term that everybody's aware of. But we'll try to stop and at least define or identify or describe some of the things that come up. But hopefully there's not too much. And if anybody is on Twitch watching and want to ask questions, definitely stop us. We're happy to clarify anything like that. But I happened to see Azure Functions there, and you and I know what an Azure function is, but not everybody does.
Kind of, but I mean, I honestly didn't have a lot of experience with Azure Functions, so I'm also very much into learning about it. I know the definition. I could say what's the basis, but I actually never use it.
Well, I believe sense. So my understanding of this learning module is that it's going to explain what all those things are, but occasionally, sometimes there will be terms that are just included that might not necessarily have a definition with them. So we'll try to do our best to clarify, stuff like that. We got Logic Apps in here, and Power Automate, and Azure Web Jobs. All of those are just buzzwords, for a lot of people who don't use them. So we'll make sure that we identify. That's going to be a big part of the certification, is that you're going to have questions that ask, under this situation, what type of tool would you use, and how would you use it? And this is where we'll figure out what's the right tool for the job and that kind of thing. So I imagine as we go through the introduction and then into the identifying the technology options, it's going to help us define some of those terms.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing to add. I totally agree. What we could add is just that maybe I think that all of those recordings are going to be placed somewhere, either on this channel or maybe even later somewhere else. So definitely, I'm not going to delete it from this channel. So if you want to go back to it, or maybe later some people would like to, if they join us later, review the previous modules, then there's definitely going to be such option. Well, probably we are going to mention it anyways next time.
Yeah.
For now, there was this introduction. I already started reading a bit when you were talking, but this is because I'm a slow reader. Like, and
Well,
especially when it comes to
kudos to you.
foreign language.
I was just going to say, you're reading it in English. So, yeah, I was just kind of glancing over it too. And usually what they do in these introductions is, I think they do a real nice job of setting a, what's the right word I'm looking for? Like a hypothetical
scenario.
situation.
Yes, it's situation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So in this case, they're telling us, suppose you're a developer at a company, and this company is a bike rental system at a large state university, and your company recently acquired the rights to operate at another university in the next state. So
yeah, I like how they kind of
setting this like
I like how they kind of
story.
made this story relatable for students somehow.
Yeah, nice. And so yeah, they set the stage, and then they tell us, okay, so here's the problem, which I love. Like, what is the problem we're trying to solve? Really helps people connect the dots on when would you use this tool because this is the problem or the thing that you're trying to do. So that's usually what these introductions are, is just to help put you in that mental frame of mind of what are we doing and how should we approach solving this problem. Mm-hmm. And then we get in the learning objectives there, and the whole point of this particular module right here is that we want to be able to choose or evaluate the different Azure services depending on the scenarios that we're faced with. So yep. That's what we're hoping to take out of this learning module.
Mm-hmm. So from this story in the beginning, from what I understand, there is this you are an owner of a bike rental system, and there is this other university that they want to actually kind of like introduce it to, so you are kind of expanding. And the idea is that you probably need to search for some ways on how to do that in a neat way, probably cheap way as well. And yeah, this is what you meant, like this is connected to the learning objectives, which is probably evaluating which Azure services will let you do that. Will let you actually expand to different university, which also needs like some integration with existing systems. So probably there are some complications or obstacles on the way, so it's not that easy to combine those systems and stuff like that. For now, for me, it sounds a bit enigmatic, but I would imagine that if we go deeper, they will probably provide us with more information about this story. Prerequisites. Oh no, something that I'm always afraid of.
Prerequisites. Yeah, well, in this case, though, there's really not that much you need to know. We actually talked about this yesterday.
Yeah.
REST and APIs. Maybe that might not be familiar terms for everyone. So I don't know, Miko, if you want to give us what you believe to be the best definition of REST and APIs are.
I'm just doing
some... What does that spark in your mind when someone says, well, as long as you know about REST and APIs?
Wait, so I have this like fancy tool to draw. I hope it's visible actually that I draw something. So for example, for me, if we have an API or a REST API in that matter, this is going to be an amazing drawing. I can already tell, but okay. So we have an API that is kind of like this weird thing that we don't know yet, okay, right? What I see is that we usually have a server or some service maybe or something. So let's just draw an S here. And we have some users. So these are my people, these are my folks, right? And let's say they want to actually, I don't know, get some data from the server or some, I don't know, it might be connection with a database, it might be some other stuff. What I would imagine is actually server would put this API in front of it, kind of like before the server, as a way to kind of communicate, let communicate those people. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if we want to go into more details, there are some, for example, specific requests which you do through the API. The most popular one being probably like get, post. I think we can even discuss just those two if this is the basic knowledge.
Those are literally the only two I've ever used. Is
You're
get,
right.
Post.
Yeah. I might have used put once, but just
put,
once.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and also just for anybody who doesn't know, API stands for, it's an acronym, of course, stands for application programming interface.
Whoa.
And it's nothing more than just, it's a program. It's an application that accepts those requests to either post or get. And as you can imagine, post means I want to put something over here in that server, and get means I want to extract it out. And so that program, that API, is the thing that manages that. And just like in your excellent Leonardo da Vinci drawing here,
maybe I should hide it already or something.
No, this is great. But your family has to go through that interface. It has to talk to that API, because only the API can then go get that information from the server.
Yeah, maybe to just build a little bit on top of that, I can add that, for example, in some of the university projects I've had, we used APIs kind of in the very way that Jason said, but maybe it will be better for somebody to actually hear an example. So we for example had an application for users that needed to communicate with a server. So we had some users, they actually had phones in their hands. So I will just upgrade my Da Vinci or like DiCaprio, whatever. If you choose an artist or anybody, it's like they had those smartphones, and they were taking pictures of things that later we wanted to actually send to the server. So we wanted to take pictures and send to the server, but we didn't do it in a like straightforward way. We actually used API, which was written with the usage of Python. Maybe you have actually heard about Python. So we wrote an API, a REST API in Python, which was working on that server. I wonder if I can change colors, but whatever, in that server. And this communication was just being served by the API. So API was kind of this program working, and it was getting the request that I want to send this, so post this image to the server. It was getting it and actually transferring it. And also the other way, when somebody in the application would like to actually show this image, they would just use this server kind of, or the API, to get it from a server. So this is those get and post. And post. Yeah, my
and we should also, I guess,
I'm hiding it. No more drawings.
Yeah, no, this is great. But we should also touch on what REST means. And REST is a little bit more confusing when you break down the acronym, because it's representational state transfer, I think. And
I have no idea.
So when you hear like a RESTful call, all it means is, can you talk to an API? Exactly like your drawing was. If you can talk to an API, that's called a REST, like a RESTful call, RESTful web call. I think it's RESTful web call. You're making a RESTful call to web services, I guess is maybe the better way to serve it, to say it. But it's the thing we were talking about with the post and the get and the put. If you can do those types of things, then it's a falls into like the REST type of thing. It's really not that important, but I don't want anybody to be confused because we skipped over what the acronym stands for.
It's representational.
But that's really all you need to know. That's the prerequisite, is that you just kind of need to know. It's how we talk to other services.
Yeah. So the acronym is, I don't know if you said it, but it's representational state transfer.
Yeah.
I don't know the acronyms anyway. I just know it's REST API, but yeah, it's always probably good to have this knowledge. Okay, so I think we can go into the next unit, identify the technology, and my light just went down. It tends to do that. I don't know why. Okay, identify the technology options.
So yeah, it looks like they're going to lay out here a little bit more details of what the business is attempting to accomplish. Yeah. And then here in this common business problems, I think it's laying out, like it says, common things that most people will run into when they're trying to build applications and services for people. And so like where it says frequently a business runs into issues when it merges with a second business or integrates with a partner organization, which you can imagine, we have company A has software that they use and processes that they use, but then you merge with company B and they've got completely different things. You got to get all that stuff working together, and you got to get them talking together.
Yeah, so this is this case of the second university, I imagine, in our story. Like there is a separate university with different infrastructure, and you kind of want to connect those.
Yep.
Yeah, this is the question. Business process modeled in software, often called workflows. Okay, so workflows, they bolded it even. I think I can do another drawing. So like,
Yeah. Bold, it means it's important.
yeah, right. Because when I don't know how about you, but when I hear workflow, I often would imagine something like, so you have some, let's say some input data, like something goes into the workflow, and then you have some boxes. They might mean different things. There might be some branches, like there might be multiple paths going in different directions, and basically then there are some, let's say, decision making. There is some decision making. So this is like my imagination of workflow. Is basically some information goes in, you build a workflow, so you build those blocks which tell you what you should do next. For example, if you should do this action on the right, or you should do this left action on the here, the second one, right? And basically it comes with some output.
Yeah, exactly. It's just going through it's going through these drawings are gold, man. These are great. But the it goes through the process of like, what is the logic? You know, if this condition is met, then do this, and then, you know, and then do another logical check. Okay, well, now that we've done this, what's the next thing that needs to be done? And sometimes it's just as straightforward as like doing the next step, but other times it does require some kind of logic to perform a task or ask a question or go get some data and then move on to the next workflow. But yeah, just like you were drawing it out there, it's really just the step-by-step things that have to get done in order to accomplish the thing that you're solving for.
Yeah. I think,
and what they're pointing out here is that there's a couple of different technologies, 4 of them, that really help us build out those workflows. Yeah. First one, Logic Apps, I love. I use those all the time. But that language, that workflow language, is something that's very common throughout Azure, especially obviously these 4 tools. As you're building out what it is that you're trying to do, the workflow is what you're building.
From what I have seen from the sneak peek that I have done yesterday, like I spoiled it, but I've seen that we are going to go deeper, of course, into those technologies later. Like we are going to talk a little bit more about all of them. So yeah, if it sounds enigmatic for now, it's okay, because we are going to learn about it anyway. And I think that right below we have those kind of parts of a workflow, like they emphasized some of the specific characteristics which appear in workflows. So we have some inputs. So this was like, I don't know, so whatever's in the beginning of a workflow. Wow, this is a beautiful arrow. Just let me start up from the beginning. I'm getting used to this tool, and of course my mouse is not cooperating. So let's say like there is some input at the beginning. They can all run actions, simple operation. Okay, so let's say that there is some, oh, whoops, actually I shouldn't maybe draw it in this way. Let's say this is an action. So something happens, and there can also be conditions. So yeah, condition can be like kind of this different block that basically branches it. Like this is a condition, like if something is 0, then if yes, then one thing, and if no, then second thing. Like the easiest condition that just popped in my mind, whatever. And they can all produce outputs, right? So this condition block produces some outputs and stuff like that. This is what basically we talked about, I think. Design first technologies. When business analysts discuss and plan business. Yeah, a flow diagram on paper. This is kind of like a workflow, right? It's the same.
It's kind of, I mean, it's exactly like what you're doing, and I think it helps me, a lot of people out, when you can visually see what's happening. You know, not everybody has the skills to just sit down and write code and think through the logic and, you know, the triggers and the connectors and inputs and outputs, but visually it's actually pretty, I shouldn't say easy, but for me anyway, it's easier to understand and reason about what's happening.
Yeah, I think that you have also touched kind of the whole idea behind this design first technology. Like this is what I would say is basically when you want to make sure that your team, which might not be so technical, should understand the actions behind or stuff like that. You kind of make this design first technology to show this higher level of abstraction and not bother yet about what is yet to come in each of those levels. So you kind of drawing incoming, you kind of have those blocks, let's say, that are somewhat connected, and they might mean different actions and stuff like this, but you don't actually implement them yet. You just outline the architecture, so you just care about this layer of abstract. So this is the design first technology. If you get into deeper characteristics of each block, then this is something you do next. First, you just this is what I would say.
And Mikolaj, have you ever heard of the term citizen developer?
No. What is it?
So, citizen developers is really anyone. It's especially geared towards, or I guess, people that aren't traditionally from a technical background.
Okay.
They wouldn't call themselves developers, programmers, anything like that. But they're comfortable using software, of course, and they are faced with challenges, much like this company or this university is. But a citizen developer is really just like anyone out there who doesn't quite associate themselves or identify themselves as a developer, but they can now use tools like Logic Apps and Power Automate and a lot of stuff we're going to go over now, and they can, quote, develop an application from start to finish that actually solves a problem.
Okay, I guess.
So that makes
kind of
them,
like lowers the threshold that you have to overcome.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes it so it's much more approachable, and anybody can be a developer. Everyone is a citizen developer. Everyone's a developer in my mind. We don't even need the term citizens or senior or anything. Like if you can get your hands on technology and build something, you are a developer. You're engineering something. So that's kind of a term I think that's really evolved out of this idea between stuff like these tools where we can visually design stuff and create solutions. But also, one of the goals of like Microsoft in general is to empower others and enable others to solve their problems and to build solutions that solve their problems and all kinds of stuff. And this term citizen developer that's associated with these types of solutions is exactly what that's meant to do. Is inspire, someone who's never done anything outside of maybe a spreadsheet with some, some simple things. Now they're ready to like solve a problem that a spreadsheet can't quite do. It can be done with these types of things, and you don't have to know, a line. You don't have to know any coding or anything like that.
It takes all of that from your back. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And we have talked like about those diagrams and workflows, and I think we are just getting transitioned to the first service, which is Logic Apps that you have mentioned that you love so much. And I
love these things.
I already opened the link, but maybe let's see what they have it here first. Like this is basically what the workflow is in terms of Logic Apps. So you build some inputs, some blocks, which then it works like a workflow. It just goes step by step, and probably you have multiple of triggers, multiple of blocks. So you have this designer. So I would imagine this designer is more for this. It's this view, right? So it's more for this citizen developer, which you said, like what you just explained. And then alternatively, if you are a more technical person, you can still code it. So I guess this is equivalent. So you can either use this designer if you are a less technical person, or if you just need this less abstraction kind of view, or higher abstraction, like just see the blocks and like do this design first implementation. And if you want to go deeper into the blocks, you can use the code. Oh, this is what they said here. Like there are over 200 connectors. So yeah, I guess there are a lot of blocks, components, and stuff. Oh, a connector is actually something more specific than I said, right?
Well, we ought to probably pause and talk about what connectors are real quick, because where it says over 200 connectors are included, what a connector is sort of a pre-built,
integration.
I can't think of a different word other than connector, but it's a pre-built thing that you can choose from a list to add into your Logic app, visually just adding stuff by clicking the plus button and choosing some, it's all done with the mouse. But for example, like one connector might be, I think in this example here where they're talking about blob storage. Blobs are just hard drives, just in the cloud where we can store files. And a connector, a blob storage connector, allows us to talk to that blob without writing a single line of code. And there's all these connectors in there that can talk to blob storage, or they can talk to Azure DevOps, or they can talk to Twitter, or they can talk to SAP. I mean, there's connectors for stuff you would have never imagined that have nothing to do with Microsoft, which makes it very easy and, quite honestly, fun to build these solutions. Just pointing and clicking and typing in a few things here and there. So those connectors are really the heart of Logic Apps, because they're pre-built stuff that almost like Lego, where you could just take, I got this block here, I'm gonna put that with this block, and then look at this awesome thing I just made.
How I've always perceived or thought about connectors was maybe in a way that it's kind of like an integration with something. It's the one that you have mentioned is actually which I have used, talking about the Twitter connector. So once we have done a Logic app that actually used some Twitter feed as a trigger to actually make some action. Yes. And this was a connector with a Twitter. So, it was actually just as easy as logging into your Twitter account and saying that you want to, for example, look for those hashtags or those profiles. And it was all of the other functionalities, APIs, stuff like that was done by the service.
Yep.
So it handled
and
all of that.
Exactly. And all these tools, these services that really have nothing to do with each other inherently, can now talk to each other. So, there's a service out there called Azure Communication Services that over the holiday break, I created a Logic app that it goes out and it pulls in phone numbers from my family, and then uses the Azure Communication Services and sends a single text out to everybody in my family once a week that reminds them that we do a family call on Sundays just to get everybody together. And instead of me like going on my phone and saying, hey, we're going to do the family phone call soon, I just wrote a program. Not even that. I wrote a Logic app. I say I wrote it. I created a Logic app. And but it's using these things that have nothing to do with each other. Blob storage doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Azure Communication Services, but now the two of them work together. So that's to me the most powerful part of all this is these. You can take stuff that they're really not related whatsoever and make them work with each other.
So I just transferred to this Logic app website when you were speaking. So I opened it from this link. I just wanted to see what's down here.
Yeah, is that the overview for Logic apps?
Yeah, I think so. There is some video probably. I wonder if there are some examples of Logic apps. I don't know. Pricing, customers, product overview, features, documentation updates. Yeah, so I guess they basically say what is it for. So you write once, run anywhere ability, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but I think that the best way to actually learn about Logic apps is to hear some of those examples, like the one you said with the family messaging, and the one which I was referring to when speaking about this Twitter connector was actually that we used Twitter connector at the top of our Logic app as a trigger of entire action. And I don't remember, I don't recon all of it, but I remember that it was something that we were listening for tweets from some specific politicians if their tweet contains a word war or something like that, and then it would message you or give you an email. So it would trigger an action that it sends you an email that there is some weird tweet happening on Twitter and you should probably watch out or anything. You can probably replace it with anything, but it was just a fun thing to do. And it's amazing how
get it to work with Outlook, obviously, but I think you can even get it to work with a lot of other external mailing tools.
I actually use it with Gmail, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Gmail is one that's in there. So it's definitely not all Microsoft. It's all the tools that people are generally using out there. Those are the 200 connectors. And I should also say, although I haven't done it yet, you can create your own custom connector. So if you find that there's not something in there that you want, you can actually create your own custom connector. So that's something I hope to do at some point, but I just don't have a use case for it just yet.
So I just wanted to quickly look at Logic Apps in Portal. Like we are not probably going to go through it, but I just wanted to see. By the way, if it's new for anybody, I just wrote portalazure.com. If you don't have an account, you can find plenty of materials how to create account. It's easy. You can create free account. We are probably not going to get deeper into creating an account right now. Just wanted to see like you can create Logic Apps straight away. So you just browse for Logic Apps, create Logic App. We're probably not going to create it now. Maybe
I put a link in chat. But also if you just go to jhan.dev/Azure, that should take you to, not you, obviously you got your own account, but anybody who's watching, just go to jhan.dev/Azure, and that'll help you get a free account. Miko, you might zoom in just a little bit. It's kind of some of that text is a little small.
I always keep forgetting. I just wanted to quickly create maybe a service, but I don't know if it's not going to be too much. Like, let's see, AZ204 Logic App. Just wanted to see like an overview. Associated with integration. No, we don't care about anything. We just want to create it as soon as possible. Create. Boom. And we have a Logic App. Oh no, it's just a deployment yet.
Yeah, but it takes less than a few seconds before it's done.
There we go. So of course, this learn path that we do, it does not require you just yet to actually do all of this stuff that we do right now, but it's probably a good way to start to actually see the service just a little bit.
One suggestion or tip for anybody who's coming in and starting to play around with, I think when you're creating one from scratch, there's a bunch of great templates in here, but if you're going to create one from scratch, I usually start with my first trigger either being the recurrence option that you see there, which is really just a scheduler. So it's saying, I want this Logic app to run every 2 minutes or 2 hours or whatever you want it to be. You set a timer, and then on that time it will run or trigger the Logic app. Another way you can do it, or another way I do it when I'm building something from scratch, is I use the when an HTTP request is received. And what that means is it's kind of like we were talking about the REST API stuff earlier. So when a RESTful call is received, then trigger something. And so by using that HTTP request when that's received, I can then trigger something. But in order to send something in so that it actually receives it and then does something, I use a program. There's lots of things you can use, but I use one called Postman.
Oh yeah.
Which allows you to make those put or post or get commands, and you can do it in lots of different tools. But just as a little quick tip, if anybody's looking to get started on something, I typically start with one of those two, and then especially the recurrence one. I think that's usually the best one for beginners, because even though it's set to run every couple of hours, you can still manually trigger it from within the Logic app. So it's easy to do some testing and make sure. That's exactly how I did that SMS communication thing, is I just set it all up. But when it's done, when I'm ready to take my hands off keyboard and this thing should just work, it's on a scheduler. So it'll run and it'll schedule and do the text messaging 30 minutes before the family call, and I don't have to do anything. But I could also go in and manually trigger it.
Nice. So I've used this one, of course, it's probably easy to deduce. But this one has maybe a bit more specific usage. It's just a fun thing to do, to kind of play with it. But it was, again, some messaging which was triggered by a tweet. Yeah, I think, okay. Boom, what do we have here? Some responses. So these are not triggers, these are some following stuff. So what can happen and stuff like this. Yeah, basically what you can see, I think, is that there's many things. There's, whoa. If we would like to go through all of it, we would probably not make it today.
Yeah.
Let me get back to it. Yeah.
So many things.
I would just downgrade the volume just a little bit on the music. Okay. So this was the Logic apps. So yeah, what we have to remember from it is that there is a designer which is more, let's say, citizen developer friendly, and there is this Logic app designer oh, whoops, it's called the same. Sorry. So there's the designer in a workflow version, and there's this code version. That's what I meant then. Yeah, this is probably more technical, and yeah.
We'll also say too, like when you're looking at that code version, technically it's not code. It's not a programming language per se. It's just JSON.
Yeah.
And all that is just
JSON is not your name, but a scheme. Yeah, a scheme.
Yeah,
file.
exactly. And
Whoa.
JSON, I'm actually spacing on what that acronym stands for. JavaScript Object Notation. It's just like laying out information. There's no logic necessarily in there, so it's not a program language that you're creating.
I just pulled my headphones, but I heard everything you said, so we're okay. Just by accident. Okay. So I think we can go to the next one since we have 4 of them. So second one is Microsoft Power Automate. This one I have used less than Logic Apps. I don't know if you have used Power Automate.
I have a little bit. I've explored with the just out of curiosity, because I feel like as this is explaining here, it's very much like Logic Apps.
Mm-hmm.
Similar workflow, similar interface. I have not created anything from scratch, but I've worked with some others who have, and it sounds like if you're more inclined to be inside Azure and using the Azure portal, Logic Apps might be the way to go. They might be a little bit more powerful. If you don't go into the Azure portal, don't need to, don't want to, Power Automate might be a little, a good alternative. Does a lot of the same stuff, works very similar, but it's even more so for those who don't quite identify as IT or developer. I think it's you'll see a lot of similarities. They're in fact, they run, I think, on the back end, they run a lot of the same stuff. Yeah.
Oh, it's even here. Here, see, under the hood, Microsoft Power Automate is built on Logic Apps. So this is, I think, exactly what you said.
Yep. So, but I think it might be a little more approachable for people who, you went into the portal and then created a Logic app and deployed all that. You don't necessarily have to do some of those steps in Power Automate. There's, as you can see on the left there of that menu bar under Flow, it's got the section for My Flows, and that's where you go and create stuff.
Oh wait, which one? In this one? No,
back within the within the module.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see what's down here, but it's
and I think I actually kind of jumped the gun a little bit there. But if on the Learn module just below that image, it kind of lays out, when would you use
which one? Yeah.
Power Automate? When would you use Logic Apps, or who should be using them?
Mm-hmm. And I think it's what you said, like it's developers and IT versus office workers and business analysts.
Yep.
Yeah, here you can use how is it spelled in American? We say GUI in Poland. But
GUI, the graphical user interface.
Yeah, GUI. Okay, I didn't know if it's pronounced maybe differently. GUI. So here's GUI only, but yeah, here you have code editing. Okay.
Yep. So I would say Logic Apps are maybe just slightly more advanced for the people who might be a little bit more comfortable with things. But Power Automate does all the same, for the most part, all the same stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then, as like on the other hand, we have code first technologies in comparison to the design first, right?
Yep.
So these were design first. So like again, in the design first, we first chose the blocks, and then we specified the properties of those blocks, like either in these diagrams or in the JSON here. We actually specify this stuff. And here I believe it's the code first, so it's going to get dirty. And we have web jobs and the web jobs SDKs.
Mm-hmm.
What is this? Okay.
We should probably define SDK for folks too.
I wonder if there's some nice explanation online that we can.
So, isn't it just software development kit?
Yeah. But I wonder if there is like anything more that we want to add on top of that? Is it just we want to say that it's like a tool set that enables you to create application?
That's a good term. Yeah, I feel like it's usually a suite or some sort of tool or group of tools that allow you to create your applications, develop your software. So it's got a lot of the stuff built in to help you create things faster. You know, it might have some shortcuts, might have some things that you can just click on to create like a nice block of code. It really varies between SDKs and the different things that you're doing. But it's definitely more so in the writing code model. And as I think that they're probably explaining here, web jobs are part of Azure App Service. And Azure App Service is obviously part of Azure, but it's a way for you to use. I'm trying to think of the right terms here.
It's like it lets you actually, well, make some of the web services public and actually host them, I would say, right? And as some of those hosted platforms, they might be actually not a website per se, like this or this one. They might be actually like some web jobs, which are, I would say or imagine, not so user friendly or user focused, but they are actually focused on the job that they are supposed to do. So you are probably publishing, like making public. How do you say that?
Making public, yeah.
No, making public, just So you are making public just some job that is actually probably going to be run either automatically or triggered. Yeah.
You're basically getting yourself a virtual machine of various sizes. You can choose how large you want your virtual machine, but I shouldn't even say virtual machine because you're not getting a machine necessarily. Although on the back end there is a machine. That's something we should talk about with this term serverless that we hear. It's not that there isn't a server. It's that you aren't using an entire server. It's less server. You're just going to use whatever is required to run the code, and then it's done. And it doesn't, so you don't have to like buy or lease or own or anything a large server to run things. I just want to put my code on something, and then when it needs to run, it'll run. And that's kind of the idea of serverless, and really a lot of the things that we're talking about right now. And app services allows you to have this infrastructure that you can run your apps on, but you can scale. You say, I only need a little bit of server, a little bit of resources now, but later as this thing gets bigger and it's used more often, I want to be able to scale that out and obtain more resources. App services is a great way to make that work.
Yeah, and also in terms of the exam, I believe that there might be some testing questions and stuff like that, which would test you whether you actually understand the app service in the terms that if you really need something more than that. What I mean is, of course, you could probably rent a virtual machine, which is just bigger thing, and use like place your website on that on this virtual machine, but it would probably cost you more time for preparing the infrastructure, installing all the dependencies and stuff like this. And probably you could pick maybe app service if you just want to run your website without actually deploying entire infrastructure. And probably there might be some testing skills, or like skills might be tested if you actually understand if for example app service is enough or not. If you should probably use virtual machine or something else. Because of course, if you can run something on app service, you can definitely run it on your own virtual machine, I would imagine. But is it necessary? Probably not. Sometimes not, definitely. And this is when you can use this one to just cut the costs and the time, right?
Yeah. And then in terms of what web jobs are, I think the main takeaway from this part of the module is that there's two types, continuous and triggered. And I feel like that's the main takeaway from here. Like this is another way to go about solving the problem for our university or our business. We've looked at logic apps, we've looked at Power Automate, Web jobs could be another way that we could solve this, but that requires using Azure App Service. And then it looks like if we go down a little bit more,
Oh yeah.
I think the next one is we're getting into our functions.
Spoiler. Yeah, I wonder how we are going to do on this review at the end of the module. Like I'm skipping some of the text. I don't read so fast though. Like, okay, and the Azure function again, it's code first technology, right? So it's not as the first two. You actually kind of focus on the code and not the design so much, right? Simple.
And the term functions, I mean, you got any guesses where that term Azure function comes from?
Oh yeah, I actually even heard this funny expression that we have like services that give you, well, infrastructure. So they are infrastructure as a service, and this is the biggest chunk of what they give you. So you get entire operating system and you have to do everything on your own. Then of course you have like platform as a service and software as a service. So I think that when it comes to platform as a service, maybe web app is actually like Azure App Service is a good example. Am I right? Or is it just, am I talking rubbish?
Is it a good example of what?
Of platform as a service, like Azure App Service is a PaaS,
yeah,
right?
Or no, I think it'd be more infrastructure as a service.
Even you say so, really? Okay, yeah. Well, I thought that maybe.
Well, Azure App Service, is going to fall under infrastructure rather than platform.
So what's a good
example? If you were to use Azure App Service to build something, then you would have a platform.
Yeah, this is what I meant, kind of like you are kind of using this one to develop a code or something, like put a code in there so it runs on the website and deploys the website, but you are not actually getting your hands dirty with the operating system.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And the way I always look at it, like if you are a developer, which I am not, but I know a lot of the terms. But functional programming is a term, but functions within just the mindset of developing software. Functions are typically a small part of a larger application.
Yeah.
It's just this little thing that does this one thing. That's all it does.
Yeah.
And an Azure function follows that same model. It's like you're going to typically not, when you're writing an Azure function, shouldn't be a lot of code, and it's really intended to do just one thing. Mm-hmm. And that way you can take advantage of the serverless, both on costs and all kinds of things, overhead of tracking down problems. When you're troubleshooting, it's much easier to go through 20 lines of code than 20,000 lines of code. So when it's a function, it's just, and that function is needed, it has to run. It'll come up, it'll run its thing, chunk through its code, then it's done. And that's where the benefit of serverless comes in, is like you don't need to have this big expensive server over here that you've already paid for, you're leasing, and you're only using it like, let's say 60 minutes out of a day.
Yeah.
Why don't you only pay for just those 60 minutes?
Yeah.
And only pay for the calls that are being triggered. Like
finishing my chain of thought, I wanted to, I think, kind of, and maybe add on top of you, is like when you have infrastructure as a service is that big, then you have platform as a service, then let's say software as a service, and then I've heard expression function as a service even. Like it's the smallest grain that you can get, and you basically are using this service to kind of just develop a function, and it's going to get asked to do one thing, then do this thing, and then just finish it. And and then just as you said, you don't pay for anything else rather than just running it. I think they are like kind of stateless, or maybe there is a way there are durable functions, right?
Yes, exactly. There's durable functions. There's ways to
remember
maintain
the
state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and for anybody who's not familiar with that but state means like you've done something, and so there's like a current state. You've got information, you've got, I don't know, something, the program has done something already. And typically, well, I shouldn't say typically, but there are cases where the information that you've created or obtained through that function, you need to hang on to that and use it for another function down the workflow, or who knows, but you need to maintain that information so that you can use it again. Mm-hmm. That's where we're talking about state. We got to maintain that that information somehow so we can use it again in the future. And durable functions, which I don't know if we'll cover those within this module.
Probably not.
But yeah, that's part of what those are for.
Uh-huh. And there are, of course, different ways to trigger those functions. As I mentioned, it's basically written here. You can either trigger it via HTTP trigger, the timer trigger, blob trigger, or CosmoDB trigger. How does this work? This template when you want the code exiting.
So the Cosmos DB, as I'm sure you are aware, is one of Microsoft's kind of globally distributed database options out there. And what this trigger does is just looks at your database, and if a new record's added or some change has happened within your database, then trigger.
Mm-hmm. And then again, we have this comparison, right? Now between Azure Web Jobs and Functions one. Yeah, like at the beginning, it looks like Azure Functions is just much better, but then I think there are some downsides to that as well. So I think you use the Web Jobs if you want it to be a part of App Service application. Also provides close control of job host. What is job host? This is this one, right? Job host configuration. In this case, you can use also web.
Yeah, I think that's just so that you can configure a little bit more. You have a little bit more control over configuring what's happening on the host, or the jobs that are running on the host.
Yeah, it says like it's reducing the amount of code required to interact with the Azure App Service. Yeah, so you're probably right. Like you are configuring what the host is supposed to look like. In order for the application to work correctly, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Because you don't have entire control over the host like you would have in your own virtual machine, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Some of these things, the idea of serverless, like there's always a server. It's just that it's been abstracted away so that you don't have to touch it, you don't have to mess with it. But occasionally there's a reason why you need to configure something on the host, or your application just won't work. And so I think that's where we're going with this.
All right. And I think that the next unit is about actually using this knowledge that we got from here to make some choices in some scenarios.
Yeah.
So let's do that. Analyze the decision criteria. There are several different business processes that run here. How to choose a service. Okay. The following diagram shows a simplified flowchart that you can use to choose the best. Okay. Alright, so this is basically to kind of structure those services again for us. So whether we are using design or code services, and then who will develop the workflow, you can either choose Power Automate or Azure Logic Apps. This is what you said, right? Like if you have the citizen developer. And on the other hand, we have this part of an existing app service. Oh, sorry. So then you use, of course, app service, and do you need to customize the job host? So these are the two things that actually distinguished or were better in app service rather than in Azure Functions. So these are the decision blocks. And by the way, nice example of a workflow.
I was gonna say, it's it's like a decision tree basically, but it's helping us understand the flow of things as you're deciding, is this something where I have code I want to write, or would I rather just point and click? Well, okay, it's design first. So we'll go over here and take a look at Power Automate and Logic Apps.
Okay, and there are like some questions that you can ask yourself whenever you are put in front of that question. So I think they are just explaining this diagram that we have on the top. Choosing a design first technology. Yeah, so basically when you choose a design first, you still have a question who is going to work on this workflow. If developers, you choose Logic Apps, and if users, then maybe the the Power Automate is going to be more suitable. Yeah.
I would say also, kind of thinking back on on my previous career, previous job as kind of head of IT. But the nice thing I like about this is there's always things that users need. There's problems that they're trying to solve for the business, and of course, there's not always enough people within the company who can sit down and write a program to solve that and whatever. So when you can empower your users, just people who aren't in IT, who aren't developers, when you can give them the tools to solve problems, that's when I think you point them towards Logic Apps and Power Automate, but you unblock those users to again, solve their own problem. Teach a person to fish rather than constantly fishing for them. That to me would have saved me so much time and effort if I could have just said, I hear you, I know what you're trying to do. I don't have time to write a program for you or to solve this for you, but here's some tools and here's some guidance and some documentation. Have fun. Go see if you can solve your problems, and I'm here to help and support. But it allows them to own some things, and really have a better stake in what they're doing. And I wish I could have, thinking back to 10 years ago, I wish I could have done more of that for the people that kind of worked with me. So I was always this one person. I was kind of the blocker. People would come to me with they needed help, and it's just me. I don't have enough hours in the day. I can't do this for everybody. But if I could have just given them the tools,
yeah. It's
it would have been great.
A way to mitigate such bottlenecks and stuff like this, right? If you have resources, like either people resources or just time resources. Oh, sorry, I skipped. I was kind of reading in the meantime as well. Of course, there's this choosing code first technology comparison right below.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is nice that the Azure App Service can be, for example, in DevOps environment.
Yeah. So have you used Azure DevOps?
Yeah, I have, but I'm actually amazed that maybe the other cannot. I mean, I know that it's built from those repository parts, this automation, this workflow, CI/CD stuff, and maybe let me just write it real quick. Oh, sorry for the Polish website. I want to find Microsoft page. Plan smarter. Oh yeah, so these are the parts that I'm talking about, right? So yeah, you have the pipelines. This was the word I was looking for.
Yep.
I wonder to which part you actually integrate the Logic App Service in the pipelines, probably, right? You integrate them.
I don't think it's not the Logic Apps, is it? And isn't it the code first?
Did I say Logic App? Oh,
Just
sorry.
now you did.
Oh, whoops! I meant the App Service then.
Azure App Service, yeah.
Yeah, I kind of lost.
Well,
myself.
if you think about Azure App Service, there'll be an application that gets deployed to Azure App Service, and that whole deployment. And even if there's a build process to the application,
okay.
We'll go over it some other time. But that's what Azure DevOps is intended to do within that pipeline functionality. Is here's this code needs something. It needs to be put together and compiled or however the terms you want to, depending on the application. But something has to happen before it'll work. That's where Azure DevOps comes in.
Okay. You have specific customizations, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and mixing technologies.
Yeah, the beauty of everything that we've talked about is that you don't have to just choose one. You can use all of these and they'll all talk to each other. Because that takes us back to the RESTful API conversation at the beginning, is that each one of these can just make a REST call someplace else to trigger another action. So you could have, in fact, I've got several Logic apps that somewhere within my workflow, it triggers an Azure function. And so then that Azure function goes and runs something. And once that Azure function's done, it might call make another call to another service. So it's really nice that you can, if we just talk about Logic Apps and Power Automate, you can get things to work with each other within a Logic App, but then you can also have that Logic App talk to a function.
Yeah, they also emphasize the another benefit coming out from this integration is that you can actually make this entire workflow kind of dependent on different people. So if you have like Logic Apps talking to Power Automate, you can make sure that, for example, if there are some business people involved into a workflow, they can focus on the Power Automate one, and then the devs can actually use those like bigger features in Logic Apps later if they need and can use them.
Right.
So, okay, next you need to choose the best design first technology to automate your business process. Okay. Okay, so there is the story again with this bike rental business.
Yeah, let's revisit our scenario here. So we're trying to choose a technology really for the booking process.
Okay, so we want to integrate it with a bike tracking technology that is used on the new campus that you have recently obtained. Okay, and there are more details. So, first of all, on our original campus, we have 5 bikes. Okay. Oh, sorry, no 5 bikes, 5 bike rental shops. Yeah, that's probably an important detail. Each shop has a list of bikes. Okay, so we have basically 5 shops and they have all those properties if a bike is available or not.
Right. Sounds like just an inventory type of database. Like, here's what we got and here's what's available.
Okay. So from this paragraph, I get that for now it works like if your customer leaves a bike in a different shop, then your employee has to go get it, but you would like to actually change it so that customer can leave it anywhere, but the staff should still have an option to actually monitor it and know where the bike is, that it's in a different shop or something.
Yeah. So we're looking for a way to, so they're going to scan the bikes when they show up, so we know where they are, and if they're out, if they're rented, the location is changed to on hire.
Okay.
And the name is recorded.
Okay, if shop doesn't have a bike with the right equipment, the shop can quickly find out where such bike is and get it or send the customer to the right shop. Okay, and we have REST API in the database.
Okay.
Well,
so that's just a quick overview. That's the problem we're trying to solve.
Okay, and I think that they kind of put it also in a workflow way, kind of to visualize the process for us again. So, record customer details and frame size. So this is what the user wants to rent. Record some specific features, if there are any. And then you look up for the bikes that actually fulfill those needs. You get those locations from the database that has REST API. And then you see if the user is actually at the right shop. And if this user is at the right shop, then you can just book the bike. And if no, then you can book the nearest bike, email staff to move the bike, and scan the barcode in a new location. Okay, and then you update the location to on hire and take the payment. I wonder if the customer is waiting here. Like, I want to rent a bike. Oh, sorry, it's in the next building or shop, and then you just wait. But okay, it seems like it's the case here, if I understand correctly. Yeah, well, okay. And is it again the same, or is it something different? The customer requests the bike.
I think they're just detailing
Yeah, they are giving even more details.
the steps.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a huge scenario.
Yeah, it's a big one, but common. And I like how they have a visual workflow like you were drawing at the beginning. It helps, I think, to me and lots of people, I'm sure, to visually see this logic, like our quote, our workflow.
I love how at the end they said it's a simplified process. It's a simplification. Okay. Choosing a technology then. Let's look at Azure technologies available to implement the business process. Okay. Okay, so we probably are given a solution here with some explanation. Okay, so since the managing director and her staff is going to be involved, we probably want to do a design first, right? It's also yeah. Okay, so we choose design first because there are going to be business people involved. So we don't want to get to actually introduce them to the code because it's just a big threshold. And then we have
another thing.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to comment on, because this is kind of how in the real world this ends up working out, is that logic apps, which I feel like, it's either going to be a logic app or a Power Automate that we're going to do this, at least the first few steps. But whenever you have other people, other stakeholders, we'll say, other people like the managing director who wants to be involved and understand what, how this works and have some input, have some say. When you're building out your proof of concept or your minimum viable product, your MVP, logic apps are perfect for that, because you can create things real quickly, you can change it, and people can visually look at it and make sense of it. And then later, if you determine, well, there's some limitations we're running into with logic apps, then maybe it's time to go more of the writing code type of approach. So it's a great place to like get something initially, just like I was telling you with my Azure SMS communication services. It's just a logic app. It's super simple, but if this was ever to be like a real thing that handles a lot of text messages and big database full of information, the way I did it probably isn't going to work in the long term. So it's a great way to start and get ideas working, and then think through things, and then build on top of that.
Kind of as a like research and development strategy.
Yes, exactly. It's really great for that.
Okay. So we know that we want to use design first technology, and now we have to pick one of those two guys. Okay, so because in this scenario above, they didn't say that this like director and stuff, what they want to edit or modify our workflow. And since we have like our own REST API, we will need a custom connector which is a developer task. It kind of, we can see, inclines into one way now, but yeah, let's read forward. It seems sensible, the development. Okay, so basically it's
it's just kind of nudging us away from Power Automate, this idea that we might have to create a custom connector. We might need to involve a developer or somebody who's comfortable looking at like the JSON. And so that's how we are,
this is
landing on logic.
This is kind of what I would imagine can be on the test. Like, I'm kind of guessing, but I would imagine it can be. Like, you are given some scenario, and then you have to kind of like use arguments in it to deduce which service is the best to use. Even though if you can do it with multiple services, there's probably one best, or maybe several, but you can understand the business process and the audience in order to choose the right service, so to say. Okay. When to choose Azure Functions to run your business logic. I wonder if this is already like an answer to the next scenario, but let's see. When to choose
foreshadowing.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, but let's not get too excited yet. Let's see what they have here. So there's a different scenario, I guess. Another process from our bike rental business. Okay, so your bike technicians. Okay. So basically the bicycles are getting used. You like to integrate the system with the bike booking. Okay, so maybe let's get into the business process. I think it will be much easier to also get through the process.
Logic.
It's much nicer way, at least for me, to see what we are going through. Okay, so at the start, we want to mark the bike as unavailable because it probably got damaged. Complete the checks and see if it requires any new parts. If it doesn't, it probably is much easier path. You just complete final adjustments. But if it does, you check whether parts are in stock. If no, order them and wait until they arrive. If yes, then just straight away fit them. Complete final adjustments. Mark the bike as available. Okay, so this is kind of like maintenance of our bicycles. And there are some more details. Okay. Okay. So basically whenever a customer is returning a bike, you kind of check if everything is okay and if they can be rented again. If they can be, so there are no like new parts needed, you just complete final adjustments and mark as available. Otherwise, you go through this a bit more complicated process. Okay. And then the technician basically returns the bike as available again. So we have to choose a technology to implement the business process and integrate with the bike location. Oh, and they say it again, what I said before, like any of these technologies could be used, but there's probably like some of them that are the optimal choice, right?
Right. Yep.
Okay, so design or code first. It's probably intuitive that they will go with code now, but let's see why. Okay, so what I understand here is since we have kind of no arguments, why would we go with design first? And there might be a situation where you actually need to go into some low level details. We should like it's actually telling us that we should choose the code first, I would say. It's somewhat an argument, however, it's not like a super vivid one, and not at least for me. Like, basically, it's like we choose code first, mainly because we do not have any incentives that we should go for design first, and also like because of that, choosing code first gives us more option later. This is what I would like understand. Like, it gives us flexibility basically because you don't have to narrow the scope for business people or other users.
Yeah, and we know we may have the need to do some customization, some things that we might not be able to do within a Logic app very easily.
Okay, so then we kind of go this direction, so we have to choose between Azure Functions or Azure App Service Web Jobs. The following factors will influence your choice. Oh wow, that's actually interesting.
So earlier we were talking about app services and the serverless conversations. It's saying there about with regards to cost, if we're going to go with the web jobs route, we will require an app service, which I kind of mentioned is more or less a VM, and that might be a little less cost effective because we've got this server that's being used a fraction of the time. It's only being used when somebody makes a call, but we bought this big server, and or we paid for a app service plan that is larger than what we really needed. So they're making the argument here that if you have a situation where you're only going to be calling this application, doing this thing either infrequently, or it doesn't take long, it shouldn't be like a long running process, that Azure Functions is probably the better approach.
Yeah, and what is more, they mentioned those integrations that like you want to actually make this solution, this maintenance solution, work with the previous one for the booking service. And they write here that it is possible with WebJob to integrate with Logic App, but it's much more suitable to do it with functions, because I think there's just much more there are more dedicated features or functions already implemented into the Logic apps. Yeah. Are you ready for a knowledge check?
Let's check let's see what we learned. Can you pass the quiz?
Okay. Ready. Bring it on. Read the following scenarios and then answer the following questions. Oh man, there are going to be a lot of scenarios, huh? Let me just check the questions maybe. Oh no, there are two scenarios. Okay.
Yeah, just two.
Okay, so of course they want to check if we are going to pick the right services and why we are going to pick them, probably.
Yeah.
So let's go with scenario 1, because from what I have seen, it's the first two questions they are asked about the first scenario, and then the second two are about the second one. So maybe let's break it down like that.
That works for me.
Okay, TV adverts. Okay. Okay, so probably this is an important information.
Yeah, I would call those constraints. Like these are things that like the part about the creative team would prefer not to have to wait for a developer, which is perfect. That's exactly what these tools are for. Is it just enables that person to kind of disconnect themselves from needing somebody's approval or not being involved. Like there's all kinds of scenarios.
Yeah, I'm kind of emphasizing on or underlying some of the parts, because this is like, I kind of try to always, when there is a huge block of text or a wall of text, I always kind of try to break it down to some important information. Like not necessarily entire sentence matters. There are some hidden information, like developers want to carefully control the way the workflow retries this connection. So maybe they want some more control. So, and developers is probably a keyword, as well as the creative team here, which implies that this is not certainly like a super technical part of business. Okay, so let's see what they ask us. Maybe in the television advert company, which technology would you use for the advert review process? And the second one is, would you use for the feedback collection process? Okay, so we have two processes which we integrate with them, and they can use different services. So the first one, the advert review, what do we know about it? So it should be managed by members of the creative team. So I would go with the design first, right? And probably even further with the Power Automate, since it's the creative theme.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly what you were saying. Is that's the key. That's the cue here. Is that it talked earlier about if you're looking at the difference between Logic Apps and Power Automate, why would you use one or the other? Power Automate is a little less technical, doesn't require any understanding of JSON and the code behind it. Yeah, so I think that's kind of where they're edging on here. That would be my just initial guess, basically.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a pretty strong guess.
Okay, and then second one, the feedback collection process. So let's read about it again. So it calls some on-premise SharePoint server, so there is some custom integration to be made. Okay, and there might be a need to retry this connection. Okay, so I would go probably with... It's not as easy one. I think I would pick function, maybe? I don't know. Does function have an option to retry the connection when it fails?
Well, it can. I think it depends on the function.
You look like you don't necessarily agree with me.
Well, I agree. This one's a little vague, little more vague on.
No, but if you think it's not a function, then we can discuss it. Like, what would you give?
Yeah, let's go back and look at the television advert company, which technology for the feedback collection. So the feedback collection process calls an on-premise SharePoint server. So in order to do that, you could do that in Power Automate. You could do it in Logic. You could do it in any of them. Because the server is not as reliable as cloud-based server would be, developers want to carefully. So this is a developer, maybe developer first, or at least developer friendly. So I think we can rule out Power Automate.
Yeah, definitely. This one is crossed out. It's even more crossed out because we already picked it.
Yeah.
So you probably are giving a nudge towards Logic Apps. Am I understanding you correctly? Are you thinking?
My opinion, maybe this is because I use Logic Apps all the time, is that you could do this with Logic App, no problem. But I do think that this could be a little bit of not a trick question, but
okay. So maybe let's leave it between those two, like either Logic Apps or functions. Maybe we will see, or how certain are you on Logic Apps? Like, I'm not certain with functions, don't worry.
Yeah, I don't know. How about let's maybe just put it as a Logic App for now and take a look at the other.
Okay, that's what I would suggest. Like, we have the advantage of probably picking once per each. I don't know if it's cheating, but we'll see what will fall later. Or maybe they were smart and they actually made it so that you can pick, like, maybe it's just a trap that I think that you can pick once every time, like one every time. Like, you know what I mean, right? Okay, let's go with scenario 2. Let's leave Logic Apps for now.
We gotta read that one. Okay.
Okay.
What's that?
Yeah, I'm just saying okay.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, sorry, I'm probably reading a bit too slow, but
No, you're fine.
So what do you think? So first of all, we have an information that it needs integration with the API. That's pretty obvious, but this again you can do with all of them. Yeah, the tricky part.
Last,
oh yeah. Go on.
One little thing, that last sentence, you have hired a small team of developers to do the work, and you prefer a design first approach.
Oh wow, this almost instantly goes into logic apps, right?
Well, again, this kind of feels a little tricky. Just because you prefer design first doesn't mean you can use design. I always.
You think they are so like? You think they are so like? Oh my god, it would be so tricky if they did that. But okay, they might. Like another thing is like from if we are in the traps already, is that they are saying that it is built as an Azure App Service, web app, but you want to manage the order and dispatch workflow as a separate project, because if something is a part of an Azure App Service, it would imply that maybe you want this the web jobs, right? But then there is this but, and there is this golden rule: whenever there is a but in a sentence, you just cross out everything that is before it.
Yeah.
So this is like a keyword almost. Yeah. So I'm kind of feeling shady about this Azure app because it's separate thing. So you kind of, there is an Azure app, but you don't need an integration with it. It's a separate thing. It's like, okay. So would you say logic apps? Again? Okay, let's see. In the merge company, which technology would use?
Also, the good news, I know you've done these before, but for others who might be watching, is when we click check your answers, it'll tell us what's wrong, and then we'll get it right.
So if we get wrong, it's because we want to read the explanations for us why it's wrong, and then of course check the right answer.
I will say that there's, first of all, let me just be real honest. I am a terrible test taker. When I took the AZ900, I was terrified. Like I hate taking tests because I hate failing tests, or I hate not even failing. I hate not meeting my own expectations, you know?
About that.
And a lot of it's just because of stuff like this, is I'll read a sentence and then my brain thinks, oh, they're tricking
tricks,
me.
Yeah.
They're tricking me.
About this not meeting your own expectations, I always say that I'm just unlucky test taker, you know? It's just unlucky.
That could be. I just know I'm not.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Of course, it's like,
so
the same.
But the nice thing about these tests is that I'll usually go with my first instinct, and then check my answers, and then try to understand if I got something wrong. Try to understand why I got it wrong. So
what? Do we go with logic apps?
I think for which one? Number 3 or 4?
I was thinking about 3.
Number 3, in the merged camera company, which technology we use? Company acquired quality merged company integrate with your partner, which includes a REST API. I feel like Logic App probably isn't the right one because there's not going to be a connector for it.
Okay.
But again, we have that line there. We've hired these developers, so the developers could maybe write a custom connector for us, and they preferred design approach. So that does seem to lend itself towards Logic Apps. But I could also see Azure Functions being completely acceptable.
This is between those two, but this sentence is just messing with my mind, because if you prefer a design first approach, it's kind of a huge thing for me to even force the usage of logic apps. Like, go with logic apps, it's design first, go on.
Yeah, let's go with logic apps, but I have a feeling it could just as easily be function. But I think number 4 is Azure App Service with web jobs.
You think so? Oh no, I'm sticking to my golden rule that bot is actually. I think that this little dude, like this bot, I will even use my drawing skills. You know, I think, but maybe it's a bold thing to do. But I think that this guy is a keyword. It's like
that's a trick. Yeah.
When you see this one, this is like a trip teller. Like there is no such idiom, but there's like, you know, it's a goddamn trap. Like. I said
well, I can tell you, I've already checked the answers, and we are not doing well so far.
Whoops.
Do you want to change some answers?
We can just click, I guess, and just see what we did wrong. and see why we did wrong. Like, this is the learning process. It's painful, but it's a learning process.
Yes, exactly.
I'm
But it'll
clicking,
tell
okay.
us. It'll give us some hints. Exactly.
Hey, it's not that bad. Oh, because you probably went with the web jobs, right? Here.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, Logic Apps gave us 50% of the win, so I'm still gonna.
Logic Apps will solve anything, man. It's the best hammer for every.
Right? Yeah, you can do anything with Logic Apps. Hey, we also were right about this one. I think this question was the easiest out of those four. Like,
First one? Oh.
yeah, the first one, because it was a straightaway answer when you heard that there are non-technical people involved into it. It's almost easy Power Automate stuff.
Right.
So here, web jobs. Oh, you see, and this is the tricky part with the retry policy. So this was the keyword that we should have seen or spotted, is that they were concerned about it, right? It's like they want to carefully control the way the workflow retries this connection. And this one, I actually have no idea. I think you just need to know this from from the experience, or maybe we just missed it.
For some reason, I mean, we can go back and look at it, but I don't remember anything specific about the retries in the module as we were reading through it. Maybe I just didn't catch
jobs,
that.
Right? Let me see real quick. Web jobs. It was previously, even before, and even before. It was right at the beginning almost. Okay. Or was it? Yeah, here. Let me just Control F. Retry? Retrieve? No. Oh, there is nothing. Yeah, you were right. The cloud-based continuous trigger. I mean, they just.
I mean, it just. I guess the gist is that the web jobs provides a little more control. So if you do need that control, or that there's that need to be able to manage the retries.
Okay, but then it was the
It's not a
second
strong
one, right?
question, in my opinion.
It was the the web jobs, and we picked Logic Apps, of course. But why isn't it, for example, functions? Probably it's a bit more technical.
Because of the retry thing. Although, yeah, I think it's because it's simply because they want the connection retry.
Okay, you're probably right. Yeah. So
that
probably
retry thing. We need to take a mental note or take some notes or something. If on the certification exam, if there's something about retries.
It's a service web jobs. Yeah, and if there's a but, it's you just cross out everything before.
Did that rule apply for you? Did that help?
Hey, yeah, it did. You see, it was Logic Apps.
Yeah.
Because of they wanted to trick us that it's the web job, but then again, it's a nasty one, I would say, because there's a bot you want to manage the order and dispatch workflow as a separate project. Oh, do I have to check them again? I think I do. Okay.
Yeah, you got to select all of them, and then it'll unlock the achievement, and then you can move on to the next one.
Yay, congratulations. And summary, okay.
No.
So simple, but often they include challenges. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they kind of emphasize again those kind of critical points that you should pay attention to whenever picking specific solution. They are saying that you have those services. That's it, actually.
We did it.
We did it. Kind of like we are a little bit over the time because we thought that we will make it before 7.
Yeah.
Like 7 my time. What is it for you? It's like 9, right?
11
no,
a.m.
11 a.m. Right? Yeah. Because for me it's evening. For you it's like morning. Yeah, I'm getting myself some tea. I'm going to sleep after that. Oh, we can unlock an achievement.
Yeah.
God damn, that
your
feels
points.
great.
Gotta get all
200
those points.
XP, yeah, of course. Create
Awesome.
serverless. Okay. Well, that took a lot of time, but it's great that we are actually diving deeper into those specific services, and like actually, I think it will enable us or let us remember it much more precisely when it comes to the exam time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if our objective through this is, we're trying to prepare to take the certification. I know for me, like I said, I'm a terrible test taker, but if I go through this methodically and reread some things, if I just exactly what we did, take our time, it'll stick with me a little bit better, rather than reading through it and then not maybe understanding why I got something incorrect. So 2 hours, just under 2 hours, I don't think it's that bad.
Yeah. And a little spoiler, next time we are going to actually create some serverless logic with Azure Functions. So we are going to dive deeper into one of those 4 services. Maybe there will be some on-hand experience even. I don't know. I'm just speculating.
It looks like there's 2. Yeah, there's going to be 3 exercises as part of that.
Be prepared for a long stream then. No, but okay. So yeah, I think if anybody will watch it in the future, maybe, then make sure that if you need anything or want to chat about it, then you can definitely reach out. You have like the direct link right here to message me. You can message on Twitch, right? Do you want to give anything, like any way to find you, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, Twitter's always a good place to reach out, at Jason Hand on Twitter. And then I imagine, we haven't really talked about it, but we'll put these, you're recording.
Yeah.
So we'll put these videos somewhere. I'm not sure where, maybe in a couple different places, so that they're
It's
out
still
there
being
for people
decided.
to go back and review.
Yeah.
Put them up on probably YouTube, I'm guessing. Maybe they'll stay on one of our, probably
At
yours,
least.
I'm thinking. Yeah, and then I can link to them. We can blog about them. So, I mean, the idea is, we're getting ready for an exam. We don't know exactly when we're going to take it, but we're preparing for it now. And I know there's others out there who are doing the same. And if the 204, AZ 204, is one you have your eyes on that you'd like to do, you should join along. And even if you missed today or something, we'll have these videos available to go back and watch. And,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly.
Cool.
So,
Well, this has been fun.
Yeah, and I guess we will chat again either next week or 2 weeks, right? Yeah. So
I think our plan is to, as often as we can, do it on Thursdays about this same time.
Yeah, weekly basis most likely.
But life happens and things come up, so we'll adjust as we need to.
We'll try to do it weekly basis, though. Okay. Well,
yeah.
Thank you as well, Jason, and I think until next time then.
Yeah, thank you, Mikiwai. It's been awesome. We'll chat later.
Peace.